up. Sit with your shins crossed, right? Lift up your spine. Drop your shoulders. Flex your feet. Change the order up for a moment about how you get into your practice. Because even though we recognize that these things are good for us, doing stuff the exact same way creates stagnancy, makes us stale. Mr. Iyengar would say, determination made only from the will of the ego, like just knowing it's good for you, doesn't last long. Press your hands down again, lift your spine up, drop your shoulders, let your eyes close, keep your feet flexed. So my question for you is, before we totally get going, we all know we're here for something on the mat. But what keeps us on the mat? What keeps us coming back? That is not the intellectual knowing or driven by the ego that we should be here, right? Intellectually knowing, well, I know this is good for me, but I just can't, right? We've all said that probably. And the ego would also be like, well, I'm doing yoga because I like the way it makes my butt look, or, I want to be flexible enough to do hands, backward bends and all that stuff because I think they look cool. Recognize that those kind of get us through the door. For some of us, that's why we're here. But what keeps you coming here when you start to go, well, I really don't care about backward bends that much? Or you go, yeah, I know it's good for me, but I'm not hurting as much, and I really just want to eat this entire cake, right? Like, we run into those moments. So when you're here on the mat, you're here tonight. I don't have to preach to the choir. You all made it. But as your teacher, I want to offer you the thought and insight. Is there an emotional attachment to joy or some other piece that inspires you to get on the mat? That is not an external thing, but it's part that can create some joy in the journey. As my teacher would say, as Gabriel would say, can you get on the mat and be happy that you're even just on the mat instead of looking for the end result or the dream of what might be? Doesn't have to be a higher purpose. Because to me, there's no purpose higher than you, than each person's individual journey on it. I'm lucky I get to see so many of your journeys, but always to question why we're here, because I want your journeys to go a long time. I want you all to build the endurance, not for a pose. Yes, for a pose, but not just the pose, not just to tolerate being on the mat 1 hour. But I want your journeys to be long and your endurance to be strong and your commitment to you. Not just through force, but other means. They're that inspirational thing that we see in the people in the world. We might know them, or we might only know them through the work they've put out that kind of seems otherworldly, right? Mahatma Gandhi. Something in the way, the reason that guy kept doing his work that kept driving him past the moment, like looking for the end result. And I'm sure we could all name many people, Mr. Iyengar. So for you, how do you step into that place where your work is inspiring for you? That if you get to do the backward bends, or you find that opportunity to eat the whole cake, great. But your work takes on a quality that there is joy in that work, and that brings you to the mat. So look for that in your practice, my friends, regardless of what the asana is. You're on your mat. You're on your journey. Be inspired by it, with it, through it. Because I am constantly inspired by all of you. And a lot of my practice, a lot of my teaching is to help you see how inspiring you all are. So hopefully You inspire yourselves. Take a nice deep breath in, bring the palms together at the chest, thumbs touching the sternum. We'll Om shortly 3 times and begin. Take a breath. Om. 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 Bow your head. Salute the essence of yoga inside yourself. Bring your hands into the lap. Let your head rise and your eyes open. All right, so nice to see everybody. Let's go ahead, and I would like for you to lay on your backs. Have blocks and straps nearby if you have such tools and implements. Go ahead, lay down, stretch your legs out. You may bend your knees and have your feet on the floor if that causes you pain to stretch your legs out. We're going to kind of continue working on some stuff towards some backward bends. That'll also help some of our seated poses. So we're going to go quickly from lying down to seated, and then we'll do a couple other backward bends from maybe supine, a little standing. So laying flat on your back, go ahead and grab your yoga block. Lift your hips with your knees bent. Place the block flat under your sacral plate. Now remember, your sacral plate is just above your tailbone and just below your spine. Kristen has it in the right spot. So it's the buttock. The shelf of the buttock is supported. Press your elbows down into the floor with them bent, pressing the top of your shoulders down into the floor so you dome the chest, creating Satchubandha or bridge pose. And this is a modified action. Traditionally, the legs are straight. We will get into that. But starting with the knees bent like this, there begins to be a prep for the flexion and strength of your leg muscles. And we've talked about this for months, or well, I've talked about it. You've hopefully listened. I've talked at you about it. Push down through each foot, firm into the floor, not enough to lift your hips up, right? There's a difference between making your legs strong by pushing your back into it versus just the strength of your legs. So push your feet down, try to push equally through the heel and the front of the foot, and then squeeze your thighs together and your feet are a little bit apart. So your thighs have to rotate internally, widening the low back hip. And even though there might not be a big stretch, you're engaging muscles to stabilize in a position they're not normally flexed in, which is a major part of a lot of backward bends and things like that. We don't do backward bends in our normal day. Well, most yogis don't. Most people don't. So when you start to engage into any form of it, always work the strength of the legs first, and then we start kind of experimenting with the low back muscles' ability to stay supple while all the other muscle works. So keep pushing your left foot into the floor, squeezing your left knee towards the right, stretch your right leg straight up, and then check in with all the other parts that were working. Did your chest drop down? Did your arms stop pressing into the floor? Did your left foot stop pressing into the floor? Check back in with yourself. Now, Mr. Iyengar would also say, don't do yoga with your face, but then in the same day, he would talk about, well, where's the joy in your face? And it's 2020. We don't need a man telling anybody you should smile, your yoga better. But just kind of check in with what you're expressing and what you're putting out there. Because maybe there's something about how you're, what's coming through on your face that's true about your practice or what you're doing. You start with the visible and you trace it backwards. Like a lot of yoga teachers, when we assess you or look at what's going on in your body, especially for injury, we see what's visible and then we trace it backwards. That's why I say keep your eyes open in your practice. Stay present. Switch your legs. Push your foot down. Pull the right knee across to the left a bit so they're squeezing tight together, and then stretch your left leg up. When your left leg is up in the air, regardless if it's straight up above your hip or it's lowered slightly because you're tight, whatever, can you still flex your thigh the same way and have the leg flexed as when the foot was on the floor? So check with your right leg, push the foot down, feel the thigh flex, and can you flex your left leg in the same way, even though it's straight? And what that, a lot of that is your hamstring. Stretching your hamstring a little longer while flexing it. Might make your hip feel like it's going to cramp. Good. Take both legs up. Stretch through the leg. Now that doesn't mean straighten the knee, but the knee might lengthen from it. But can you lengthen the front and back side of the leg as if there was something on your feet that you were pushing up? Dome your heart, still pushing the elbows down, keeping the bridge. Keep your right leg in the air where it is. Lower your left leg down 1 inch off the floor, roughly. If you can keep your left leg straight, do so. If you need to bend a knee, only bend your left knee. Yeah, left heel 1 inch off the floor, right leg up. Now, check your chest. Did your chest come down? Can you push your shoulders to the floor? So you have to learn how to flex the abdominals. Stretch your left leg away from your body. Stretch your right leg away from your body. Your left leg along the floor, your right leg up. And then take a belly breath and just experiment with not crunching, but flexing the abdominal muscles towards your spine so you teach that action to take place. Take your left leg up. Take your right leg down. Stretch your right leg out. You may bend your right knee if you need to, but try to keep your left leg up and long. So you develop that quad strength. And then once your legs are in their position, lengthen them away from the hip, even though the knee might not straighten on one of them. The thigh still pulls the bone away from the hip. And then flex the abdominals into it. Become aware of what it takes to actually engage those stabilizers. And it might be hard. I ate a whole cake. It's not good to do core work on a whole cake. Bring both legs up. Bend your knees. Take both feet 1 inch off the floor with the knees bent. And it's both heels, not your tippy toes. Stretch your heels down. And now holding your heels 1 inch off the floor, here's the fun part. Flex your thighs like you're trying to push your feet down, but don't let them touch. So you push, so the hamstrings have to resist it. You push down, but you lift at the same time. So imagine if someone put their hand on your knee and you were trying to push up, and then also had their hand under your foot and trying to push down. Very strong core muscle work. All right, feet on the floor. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Just let the right knee open up to the side. Still pushing your left foot into the floor so you can get the flexion of the leg that helps you lift the upper back. Every backward bend requires a certain amount of leg engagement to be done safely, especially in the beginning, or especially if we have injuries and issues. It's about stabilizing that spine. We found that to be very true in our seated poses. If you've been here for the last few months, which many of you have, very, very grateful for, very much about that idea of pushing the asana or pushing the root of the pose further into the ground. So connect to what is already touching the floor for you. Your foot, your hip, technically, your shoulders and elbows, and push those harder into the floor so everything else that's not those can lift up. Even feel where the back of your head is touching the floor and don't try to touch more of it down, but push what is already touching so your chin tilts up slightly. And there's a level of activity, not to flatten the neck, but to push the back of the occipital bump down so the neck has to arch more. This is what actually releases C3, 4, and 5, 6 in our backward bend, so we don't feel like we have to tuck and grip them. We start training the neck muscle to keep a lengthened curve. Switch your legs. Now you're all thinking, yeah, this pose does a lot of stuff, but it's very simple. Right, but it does a lot of stuff if you take the time to get into it. Push down through the right foot, pull your right knee to the left a bit, push your hips down, push what is already touching the floor harder into the floor so you engage that. Don't worry, we're going to do core work and all that other stuff. If you're here to be challenged, you're going to get it. And feel the effort it takes to even just push everything that's already touching the floor into the floor with some evenness or consistency. One side will not work as easy as the other, whether it's weaker or has an injury or whatever. Try to work them equally. And if that means one side cannot press as hard as the other, the side that presses the hardest backs off just a hair. Switch your legs again. Pick your left leg up, stretch it straight up to the ceiling with your right ankle crossing the left thigh. Work the arms. Don't lose that connection to pressing down. Great. So if you look at your right knee, your right foot, your right leg, your right knee should be opening to the outside of your body. Try to keep it that way with this next instruction. Slide your right foot up to touch your left foot without the knee turning towards your head. So your thigh is going to stay externally rotated. You stretch it up, try to touch the heel to the top of your left foot, and then slide it back down so it's crossing the ankle. Like a cricket, right? Rubbing its legs together. Do that 2 or 3 more times. Try to keep your right knee turned out. Slide the right heel up to touch the top of the left foot. Pull it all the way down on its own strength. So don't grab it with your hands and pull it in place. Like I said, 2 or 3 times. Your left hip will get very tired as you do this, because what this is doing is pulling all the pelvic muscles, so those left hip extenders have to hold. All right, well, that was easy. I don't hear any groaning, so it's time to go a little deeper. Lower your left leg down about 5 inches or so. Hold. Stretch your leg straight. Now slide your right, keep your right knee turned to the right. Slide your right heel to the top of your left foot and then back 4 or 5 times. I call this grumpy cricket, because there ain't no way you do this and not be grumpy afterwards. Stretch through that right leg. So even though the right thigh is turned out, you push through that right heel, stretch it for that top of that left foot, while the left leg is still stretching long. 4 or 5 times. And then, ready? If you can take your left heel 1 inch off the floor, do it. But if you can lower it, if you can't reach that far and hold the pose, lower it just a little bit more. Let your right leg go down with it. So the right thigh presses the foot into the left, or the right foot presses hard into the left thigh. And now slide your right foot to the left foot and then pull it back 3 times. If you want to make cricket sounds while you're doing it, go for it. I can't hear it. 3rd time, place both feet flat to the floor. Ooh, what a cramp, she says. She's still not groaning, so that means we have to do all the hard stuff. Left ankle over right thigh. Push the elbows into the floor, push the shoulders into the floor, reconnect to that stability. Look how much you have to redome and lift the chest after that, because the tendency is to want to grip in the low back instead of the core engagement. You want to explore how to keep your core engaged while moving the legs with all that mobility, and that does not mean flatten your back. That's why this pose is a really good pose to teach core stability with, if you keep that bend. But enough of that. Stretch your right leg straight up. With your right leg straight up in the air, press your left ankle into the right thigh so they resist each other. Push your shoulder elbows down, connect to the asana, get the lift. And then with keeping your left knee rotated out to the left, slide your left foot up to top, touch the foot. Do that 4 or 5 times. As you're sliding the foot, you still have to engage the foot to press into the leg a little bit. So there's like you're trying to drag the flesh of your right leg up and then pull it down. All right, take a breath. Now lower your leg down 5-10 inches. Then slide the foot down 4 to 5 times. Now 3 to 4. Don't let your right knee turn up or left knee turn up to the ceiling. Keep your left thigh rotated out. And now here in the hard stuff, is there any way to find some joy in being on the yoga mat? All right, after your times, any degree lower you can go, up to 1 inch off the floor, go. Even if it's like you come down half an inch more and say, that's good enough, do it. And then slide the left foot down and back 3 times. Stretch it long, touching the top of the right foot with the heel, and then pull it all the way back in. And then bend both knees, plant both feet flat to the floor. Woo! That was hard, huh? Bring the soles of the feet together and let both knees go wide with the feet on the floor. Baddha Konasana. Push the heels together and pull your heels close as you can towards the block. And push the heels together again. Try to push both heels into each other respectively, and then the pinky toe side of the foot into the floor fairly firm. Not just the pinky toe, but the whole length of that foot, from the toe to the heel. Nice. Bring both feet flat to the floor. Lift your hips, take the block out, slowly lower your spine to the floor. We could go much higher, but we're not going to right now. What I would like is for you to stretch your left leg straight. Draw your right knee to your chest. With your left leg straight, stretch the left leg away from you like you're trying to press the left thut into the floor, that space between your thigh and the butt. So don't worry about pressing your left knee down. Try to press that space of your thigh butt down. So you might feel that if you're pushing your low back down, this is very hard to do. Take a little breath, let your low back arch a little bit, because that's natural. The lower spine is not supposed to be flat. Then with your low back arch, just a hair, stretch the left leg away from you further, and then try to connect. See if with that low back arched a little bit, you can press the left thigh down a little better. And then once that left thigh is down, let your back relax. Grab the back of your right knee with both hands, and without losing any of the left leg, press that thigh down, draw the right knee to your chest as strong as you can by bending the elbows, and then breathe into it. Let the pull on the right knee create a creasing in the hip that is what will eventually release a lot of that inner groin stuff. You all right? Now keep pulling the right knee towards the chest, and on the strength of the leg only. And you can push your leg into your hands a little bit to help this, but keep your elbows bent wide, right? We've done a lot of work on that. Just try to straighten the right leg, not up, but just straighten the right shin bone as best it can without the knee coming away from your chest. So as much as the leg wants to straighten from the hip, bend those elbows, keep that thigh tight to your chest and your abdomen, and then stretch that right leg on its own strength and hamstring up or out. And then notice what happened to your left thigh and your low back. Your low back probably flattened. So bend your right knee for a moment. Re-arch the lower back. Stretch the left thigh long, press it down, and then lengthen the right leg, keeping all those actions. Now, don't let the right thigh come up away from you. So this is about controlling how much your low back does it versus your hamstring. Go ahead, bend your right knee, switch your legs. Stretch your right leg long. Don't press your low back down, but let your low back arch a little bit. It's supposed to. Press the right thigh down, and then pull your left knee to your chest. Grab the leg with both hands. Back of the knee stuff. Pull the leg in close as you can while still working the right leg. And then keep the arms active, keep your right leg active. Left leg, on its own strength, tries to stretch the shin out, but don't let the left thigh come up. You kind of start teaching that hamstring muscle to stretch on its own power rather than like a strap or things like that. And then breathe. Bend the left knee. Stretch the left leg out. Pull the right knee to the chest again. Press the left thigh down, all that. Let your low back arch a little, that's natural. And now, left hand grabs right heel. Try to pull the right shin bone towards the chest as best you can. Done this before. So when you grab that foot with the hand, pick the shin up a little bit so it's more parallel to the body, and then pull by bending the elbows out to pull that shin bone towards your chest bone. You can use your right hand on the right knee. That's perfectly fine. Pratima, pick your foot up a little higher, dear. Yeah, there you go. And then pull that leg in. Get that. Then try as best you can, now that your right thigh's engaged, push your left thigh down. This is where it's interesting. This is all part of the Padagonstasana series. This is not a special pose name in of itself. You go look it up. It all falls under Padagonstasana. I think it's just numbered like 1 through 14. The Padagonstasana series, to stretch and strengthen the abdomen, lower back, involves chest lifting, which some of which we've done. We're going to do here today. So keep your arms active because you're going to need them. Push your left thigh down. Take a breath. Lift your head up, chest up towards your shin as close as you can pick your chest up, while keeping your left thigh pushing down and away from you. Now notice if you're picking up mostly from pushing your chin down your sternum, try to lift your sternum up so your head can lift up a little bit away from your neck, from crunching the front of your neck. Try to ask yourself to lift push the bottom floating ribs down on the very bottom of your back so you can pick up everything else. Remember that thing about the abdominals have to flex? Don't push them forward. They're not going to drag you forward. Pull them back towards your spine so then you can roll up higher. Well, there you go, Triz. Take a breath. Now, if you want more, you take your right arm behind your head and then try to grab your foot. And you said you try. It gets there eventually. You know that's the direction you move one day. All right, come on in for a landing. Close, Pratima, really good. Get that form. Stretch your right leg out, pull your left thigh in. Grab a hold of the left foot with the right hand. Pick the shin up a little bit, pull the shin towards the chest bone. Work your right leg. Pick the chest up. Bend the elbows wide to help do so. And note if you pick your head up first, which it's okay, don't slide your chin down your sternum. Let your chin lift so your sternum can lift up some on its own. It's not easy. Then you got to kind of breathe deep into the abdominals and start learning to flex them again. Just keep lifting, rising up. Now you push your right thigh down. Now you push your back ribs down. Pull your navel down towards your spine and then roll up. And then if you want more, somehow you have to find a way to pick your chest up, wrap your left arm behind your head, and then grab your own big toe. Well, don't look at me. I wouldn't look at the screen. I wouldn't do it like that, Micah. That's just throw yourself across the room. You'll learn to do it. Trust me. You get better at it as you start learning to lift from the abdominals. All right, come on down. Not an easy pose. Wonderful pose, though. Draw your right knee to your chest. Stretch your left leg straight. Grab the back of your right knee with both hands. The Padangusthasana series actually finishes with a very deep leg stretch, and we've kind of already practiced it, but it is not about getting the knee straight and the leg in the air, but keeping the thigh close to the body, and then trying to stretch the leg long. So grab a hold of your right foot with both hands. Knee will be deeply bent. If you cannot at all grab both hands around the foot, it's okay to use a strap. Just try to keep pulling your right thigh towards your abdomen. No. Your right knee will not go to the outside of the body. This is not happy baby. This is, thigh pushes and tummy time. How the abdomen gets out of the way of this is actually relaxing the back muscles, and that starts by bending the elbows wide. That involves taking a breath and pushing your bottom ribs down. Now, push your foot against your hands, not to push the knee up, but to push your heel like you're stretching the backside of your leg towards your heel. So your leg straightens a little bit, but not up, but it's like your foot comes towards your face just a hair. This is about, can you keep the thigh close to your body and then push your leg strength into the arms so the leg tries to stretch on its own strength. And at the same time, push your left thigh away from you as you push your bottom floating ribs down to create some extension. And it's a lot. It's a deep stretch. So try it. That's good with your right leg. Push your left leg longer here. Yeah, and here's the thing, you're gonna feel like I can't even begin to move my right leg. Don't worry about pushing your right leg any harder until you get your left thigh like really extended. If your left knee keeps bending and wanting to lift in the air, That's a good sign of the inner groin to lower lumbar not releasing. So everybody, keep your right leg as is, work your left leg more for me. Imagine if you were in class with me, I would come by and stand on your thigh bone and go, ah, how good is that? And then all of you would laugh because someone would go, oh God. Right, we remember. Work the extended leg because it is closer to the asana of the pose. The right leg gets some power, it starts to stretch, it'll shake a bunch, but it is not the whole pose. Now, hold your right leg where it is. Here's the fun part. Pick your chest, bend your elbows and pick your chest bone up towards your floating right leg. Don't pull your chin towards your chest. Pick your chin up towards your right shin bone past the knee. This series of actually lifting the abdominal body up as the legs are active will start to tone the abdominals, strengthen and widen and release the lower back. Very good series. I worked with a young woman that had 28, 29, had a spinal column injury. This was one of the things you had to consistently do. Correct it. All right, let the right leg go. Stretch your leg out. Hold the left knee to your chest. After this, we'll do a couple seated things. Hold the left leg to the body, grab the back of the knee. Get your right leg engaged, extended. Push your right thigh down, keep it down. Pick your left foot up, grab the foot in the hands. Keep the knee bent, pull the thigh down to the abdomen. Push your mid and upper back into the floor, bend your elbows out. So over time, the abdomen has space to push down, regardless of, your particular feelings about its size, right? Never call it the muffin top. We all bake at a different level here. I really like to bake. Pull the left thigh in, push the right thigh out and down. Bend your elbows wide, and then try to push the legs against the arms. So it's like your foot is unfurling towards your forehead rather than your knee is pushing off towards the ceiling. There you go, like that, Micah. Push through that heel, but keep bending those elbows and pulling that knee down at the same time. Yeah, there you go. Nice, everybody. Get the shakies. Come on, Katie, pick up that left leg some more. Get the left foot above the knee at least. There you go. Keep going, Katie. Challenge them hammies. Take a few breaths. And then bend your elbows, pick your chest up, take your nose towards your shin bone. Take your chest bone towards your knee and thigh. Take a deep belly breath, bring the abdominals into it to lift you, not to push them towards the thigh, but to pull them back so that there's space for your spine to lift. Pull on that leg with those strong arms, push that strong leg into the arms. So the spine is the part that has to get the greater work. Work the right leg any degree more. I know it's a lot. Shake like a leaf in the wind. Exhale. I didn't say come out, just exhale. All right, come on out, fine. Half you fell out. Half of you took that as the go, I'm done now. When I breathe, I get to quit. Sit on up. If you're suffering low back pain right now, please sit on a bolster or blanket. If not, stretch both legs wide in Uttanasana Konasana. Both legs wide, toes pulled back. If you cannot reach your big toes, one in each hand, use a strap around each foot. But if you can fold forward enough to hook your big toes with the index and middle finger, you make the claw. Hook them. Hook them horns, right? I don't know, what's that one? I cannot. This is a gesture in yoga. So Tristan said, hook 'em horns is a different gesture than this, which is true. Yeah, hook 'em horns. This is the mudra for banishing evil, and this is the closest thing I can figure that is Texas Longhorn in yoga. It's similar. Is this the horn? I love the idea of hand mudras and gestures have evolved into sports in America. Great. Awesome. Pull back on the feet. So if you can bend the elbows out and wide, do so, and then stretch your chest up. Push the asana into the floor. Push the heels down, the hips down. Push the inner thigh down. Let the knee float up a tiny little bit. Everyone just micro bend your knees so you can push your heels and hips harder into the floor. And you'll go forward a little bit more and you'll cramp harder, right? So if you're one of those people that's here for the hard work, let go of your joints and ask your muscles to give more. It's okay. Don't worry about straight. Don't worry about flat. Take a few deep breaths. Why is your brother so loud? Take a breath. Exhale, bring your body up. Keep your left leg out as it is. Bend your right knee. Bring your right heel to your inner right groin. Just pulling it as close as you can to your foot. But try not to let your right foot touch your left foot or your left thigh, excuse me. Got to keep that pelvis open. If you can reach your left foot with your right hand, do so now. If you cannot, use a strap and hold on to it with the right. If you can reach it with both hands, that's even better. Okay, so here you are. Drop your shoulders away from your neck. As I've been reviewing some of Mr. Iyengar's older series stuff, there's a pose that he keeps bringing up called the golden locks. There's 4 parts to it. You are in one part of it. It is an actual pose where you engage all 3 mudras and lock. We're going to do a couple of them today that I found very useful for back stuff. So regardless if you're holding your foot with your hands or the strap, lift your spine up long, like you're trying to stretch the front of your spine up as high as you can. Do not fold down. Lift up as high as you can. So the arms and legs are active with each other. To activate the lowest one, Jalamarband, I think. I haven't had to say their names in a while. The base one is the one in the pelvis. There's 2 actions to activate it. One, you take a belly breath really low and you move the lowest part of the abdomen back towards the spine. And then from the perineum muscle, which is between the sphincter and the genitals, you lift up. Right? So there's lowest abdomen back and up. Perineum, the muscle between the sphincter and the genitals, lift. So push your foot into your hand a little bit, flex your thighs, take a couple belly breaths, and try not to crunch the abdomen, but to draw the navel back towards the spine and think about pulling the navel up the spine as high as you can and breathe while doing that for a few seconds. Kind of see if there's a difference in quality in the feel of your spine as you do this. I have noticed that it does tend to relieve my low back pain after a while as I do this, because this isn't very much engaging the lowest pelvic muscles to lift that run right into the SI joint. So deep belly breath back. So you still breathe. You breathe in here the upper lungs, so you're not constantly dropping the abdomen. Draw the navel back, lift the lowest part of the navel and abdomen up the spinal wall, and then flex the glute or the muscle at the base of the pelvis and pull it up. It's hard to do. It's hard to do and keep for any length of time because we sit so much, we just kind of dropped it out. All right. Keep the arms holding the leg, keep the leg active, arms active. The next one, the throat. And some of you have been in class with me. I'm very particular about this because I see people crunch their neck down to their shoulder all the time. I do not want that. Stretch your front backside long and then pull the chin towards the shoulder or towards the collarbones, not down the chest, but towards the collarbones. So you have to pull the jaw back, stretch the backside of the head, pull it in. Now, pull that chin in, take a breath, push the foot against the hands, hands against the feet. Take the belly breath, pull your navel back towards your spine and lift it, and then pick up your perineum muscle higher while you keep your chin there. And then breathe into the lifted lungs. You're trying to elevate and stretch the spine from the very base to the very top. So you're actually doing all three. Uddiyana, Jalandhara. What's that? And Muladhara Bandha. You're actually doing all three. I taught you two of them and one at the first. Take a breath, come on up. Stretch your right leg out. Pull your left heel to the groin. Now we're going to do this a couple times each side. This is a very cool pose. And it's very interesting about learning to hold those three locks and hold it and how it can actually really invigorate the spine. Pull the left heel to the groin. Make sure your left foot is not touching your inner right thigh. That is to actually keep the groin from dropping down and makes it easier to engage Uddiyana and Muladhara Bandha. Both hands reach for the right foot. If you cannot reach the foot, you grab a strap. You hold. Already check all the other places you're locking up. And the mudras are known as locks because they are to be locked. You shut them and you keep them that way. So check your shoulders, check every other body part to make sure you're not locking anything up improperly. Arms are nice and long, pulling your chest up and long. So you're stretching from the front side of the spine up away from the thigh. You can bend your elbows a little bit, even though you're not going down, just to widen the upper back, makes it easier to take a deeper inhale. Push your feet into the floor. Mudras are locked, or asana is in the pose. Take a deep belly breath, pull the navel towards the spine, and then lift the lower abdomen up the front of the spine. So that's the only one we're doing now. Just kind of feel that one for a moment. Take 3 breaths in the lungs while holding that and the stretch. So you're widening your low back. Uddiyana releases and widens the lower back. It makes the lungs lift up. It tones the organ tissue, as Mr. Anger would say. All right, now take a couple belly breaths, legs long, got the stretch. Take the belly, take Uddiyana. On the next exhale, draw the navel back. The lower abdomen lifts up. So you float the lungs, you lift, and then between the pubic region, groin, and the anal mouth, pull that muscle up the high as you can towards the lifted abdomen. As I've like said, you're drawing your anal mouth and your genitals towards each other and then pulling up. Now notice how hard it is to hold 2. Can you keep those flexed and then the stretch and you're focused totally on that and still breathe? You have to breathe in this. Let those 2 go. No, don't come out of the pose. You ain't done yet. All right. Jalandhara, the neck. Do not just pull the head down. You're rolling the back. You're rolling the length of the head. So pull your chin into the space between the collarbones as best you can. Pull your chest up into the chin. The collarbones come up as the chin comes down. Your jaw moves back. That's the first. So don't fully lock it. Just be ready. Take a breath. Engage the pose. Push the legs down. Connect to the asana. And now create the locks to channel the lift of the spine. Take the belly breath. Uddiyana, pull the abdomen back and up the spine. Anal mouth towards genitals lift. Jalandhara Bandha, pull the chin into the sternum, sternum to chin, and breathe into that. The only place you can breathe is into your lungs. So try to hold those three in the extended spine stretch. Take a couple breaths. All right. On your next exhale, come on out. Switch legs again. Do it a couple times. How does that feel? It really makes you lift. This golden locks is one of the few deep held asanas where you hold all three at once that I've ever found. And it's one of the few that Mr. Angar actually wrote about in his books. He taught other poses that you should be doing the locks in, but this is the only one he actually wrote down in his books that, you know, that he taught just writing down like that. Usually he only taught lock poses in person or through other stuff. It's very interesting. He thought so much of this. This is something that has consistently gone through all his writings. Grab the left foot, do it again. And this is not easy. I still, there are days where I struggle to keep all three locked and the lift and breathe. But when I get it, man, it sings. Right arm should be farther down towards the foot than the left arm. So if you're doing the pose and you're doing it like this, where your arms are off, the right hand, the side you're stretching from, so if your left foot's out, your right side has to stretch longer than your left. Lift your spine, don't get into the crunch down action. Already start to make space to feel the abdomen, push your heels down to feel the pelvic floor move, and then already think about the shoulders moving so there's room for your chest. Take a couple breaths. On your second exhale, engage Uddiyana, navel to spine. It lifts like you're hollowing the belly and lifting it all to the lungs. Get your shoulders out of your ear, Micah. Then, Jalandhara, anal mouth pubic region pulls in and lifts up high as you can. Re-engage Uddiyana. Muladhara, pull your chin down towards the collarbones. Lift the collarbones deep up into the chins. Shoulders down. You have to keep your shoulders down to pull your chest bone up above them. Chest up. More. There. More. The locks happen because there are two parts moving towards each other to create the lock. The anal mouth pubic region pulls towards each other and then lifts the perineum. Locked. Uddiyana. Navel and spine connect. Slide up. Locked. Chest pulls up super high to draw to the chin. Chin draws into that collarbone space. Locked. And now breathe into your lungs. They're spread. They have to be lifted. And it's hard. The shaking that happens, all of that, can you use your breath and just channel it into some level of calmness? That even though you are acting in a way of restraint, it does not diminish your life. Getting on the yoga mat, even though it is a restraint on your time, does not diminish your life. Switch your legs. Can't stop. Right leg out, grab the foot. If you're using a strap, your left hand needs to be closer to the foot than your right. Push your feet down to engage the pelvis. Take the belly breath. Lift the spine up first. Pull the navel back. Pull the lower abdomen up the spine. Shoulders down away from your neck. So there's room for your chest to start lifting. So first one, Uddiyana, pull the navel back, abdomen up. Sure, you could go down into the pose, but that's part of the restraint. I would say this pose is a great example of living in the balance of it all. We're not feeding the ego by pulling ourselves deep into the pose. We're not totally ignoring the body by only doing breath work. It's a balanced pose. Let the abdomen go. Take a couple deep breaths. Shoulders down. Bend your elbows a little bit wide to help draw them down. Then belly breath. Draw the navel back, lift it up the spine. Flex the perineum by flexing the groins towards the anal mouth towards the groin, pull it up. And then take another deep breath. Let the front of the chest even lift and spread some. So you're pulling that center line bone up as your chin comes down. And then check in with all three. Are they locked? Are you keeping each half engaged? So there's only one direction for this breath to go. It's to the lungs. It's the energizing aspect of it. Or are you letting it leak out somewhere? Take a breath. If you feel choked, release one of them and then ask yourself to engage it without choking yourself. Your breath going tight on it means you're not working the bandha, you're squeezing your lungs. I would say you are not receptive to the energy of life. You're spending it somewhere else. Spend it on your lungs right now. Enrich you. Take a nice breath. 2 more. In the pose. All right, out you go. Lay on your back. It's not restorative yet. Don't get too comfy yet. Oh, I know, Enzo, that was mean, right? Grab your block or brick. Lift your hips up, place it on edge under your sacral plate. So now you're going to be a little higher than you were at the start. You get to kind of feel like what happens when you work all that pelvic work, those forward folds, lifting, extending the lower spine, now that you're backward bending on it again. Feet are about hip width apart. Press down through the feet equally and then squeeze the thighs towards each other. And then now take a few breaths. Push your shoulders down so your chest lifts up. So you can kind of even begin to breathe deeply into the pelvis and the lower pelvis area. So when you take a breath, let your stomach grip go so you feel your belly lift with each inhale. And not just up near the diaphragm and the ribs, but down into the pelvic bowl. Like Tristan is doing, she has her hands resting on her hip bones so she can feel, I don't know if she did this on purpose, but she can feel the inner abdominal and pelvic muscles move with each breath, like she's trying to breathe her fingers higher. So do that for you as you press your feet down and rotate your thighs in. Try to relax the groin. Let the legs do the work, and then breathe into that space of the pelvis. And then when you exhale, can you let those pelvic muscles really relax and lay on the bone of the pelvis and the sacral plate? Gravity is forcing the sacral plate towards the front side of the body because you're laying on the block. Can you let gravity relax and in the work you've done in your breathing, relax the abdominal muscles towards the sacral plate, the ones on the inner bones of the pelvis? Keep breathing. So as you keep breathing, it's really about letting your body kind of move with what the block's trying to do to it in a backward bend. Your legs are stable, so you're teaching with this each breath to try and relax the pelvic muscles a little bit more. You've stimulated them with the bandhas and locks. Now it's time to let the back pelvic bones come forward and the forward muscles recede into the pelvis. Because when we do standing backward bends, that's what actually has to happen to create the full flexion. When we do seated pose backward bends, more so, as I feel. If you weren't around, what was it, last Thursday we did? It was last Tuesday, it was last week, Tuesday or Thursday, we did camel pose, and I really introduced some interesting ways to look at moving your backside pelvis forward to allow some spinal bend. I highly recommend you go back onto the YouTube channel and check it out. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. All right, take a couple more breaths. Lift your hips up on your second, third exhale. Lower your spine down, stretch your legs out. I'll have a short rest. You can go to your night. Stretch your legs out, let your eyes close. Tongue away from the roof of the mouth. So remember, take a few breaths in when you're here. And whatever you got out of your practice, that was the joy of being there. Right? Even though we do not run from our pain, we do not relish in it. And even though we find joy in our work, we do not think that that is all that it should be. But we find joy in all these aspects of ourselves, the hard, the soft, just as what Hatha means. And that the yoga practice allows us to explore those parts of ourselves to find a balance. That we're not just burning ourselves up with all the right? With all the hard stretch. We're thinking that, we can make up for lost time by pushing harder. Or the tha, which is, our softer side that would have us be passive and eat the whole cake. Live in that balanced point for just a few moments with each breath. So that maybe that there's some joy here that brings you back to your mat. And rest and enjoy the fruits of your yogic practice.